In my last video, series 59, we discussed the Basel II standardized approach in which the role of ICAIs and IRS. Today, while this video series 60, let us understand the three concepts which were introduced in Basel II standardized approach. They are asset netting, haircut, and capital for unutilized limits. These are the three concepts which were introduced in the Basel II standardized approach. To begin with, let us first understand what is meant by asset netting. The Basel has prescribed certain securities as Basel collateral. They are anything in the form of cash, that is the deposit kept to the bank, or anything which is a cash equivalent like government securities, gold, surrender value of LIC policies, KVP, NSC, etc. The Basel II says that if an exposure is backed by any of these Basel collaterals, the exposure can be reduced to the extent the value of collateral is available before risk weighting that particular asset. That is, before calculating the capital fund required, the exposure can be reduced to the extent the Basel collaterals are available. Now let us take a case where there is an exposure of 300 crore, and for this there is a Basel collateral available which is a valued at 25 crore. Assume that this corporate is rated as AA. Now I have taken the balance outstanding 300 crore. I have reduced the value of the Basel collateral. The net amount is 275 crore, and it is a AA rated account. So naturally, the risk weight applicable is 30% and the required capital is 9%. So the required capital will come to 7.425 crores. So asset netting means reducing the value of collateral. Collateral means the collaterals which are approved by the Basel norms as Basel collateral. It could be cash deposits or any government securities or gold, sale, surrender value of the LIC policies, Kisan Vikas Path or National Savings Certificate, if they are available as a security, that is, the charge is created on these assets, then the value of that collateral can be reduced from the balance outstanding and the capital fund need to be provided only for the net value. Here the exposure is 300 crore, that is the balance outstanding is 300 crore, account is rated as AA, I have reduced the value of the collateral, it comes to 275 crore and the risk weight applicable for the AA is 30%, then the required capital adequacy is 9%. So if I want to take an exposure of 300 crore, where there is a Basel collateral of 25 crore available and the account is rated as a AA, the bank should have a capital fund of 7.425 crore only. That is what is called asset netting. The second one is haircuts. Haircut means increasing the value of the exposure by a percentage. I have an exposure or a balance outstanding. On that, the exposure is increased by a percentage. And the value of the collateral is reduced by a percentage before doing the asset netting. The reason is, suppose an outstanding is there which is having a balance outstanding of say 10 crore. When the bank initiates the steps to recover the dues, the actual amount spent by the bank will be much higher. The legal expenditure, the time delay, so the time value of the money, all these things are taken in the account. So the exposure is increased by a percentage, which is normally designated by H suffix E. This is known as the haircut for the exposure. Similarly, whenever the bank wants to sell the collateral security, they do not recover what is the expected value. Normally, the value that is recovered from the collateral security is much less. So, the value of the collateral is reduced by a percentage. That is denoted by what is called H suffix C. And the percentage by which it should be increased there, or the percentage by which the security value is reduced, is decided by the RBI or the central bank, which varies from product to product as well as security to security. So now the formula to calculate the haircut. See, haircut for the exposure is E into 1 plus HE. Similarly, the haircut for collateral is equal to C. C is the value of the collateral into 1 minus HC. Once it is done, from the E into 1 plus HE minus C into 1 minus HC will be the asset netting. This is what is known as haircut. That is, haircut is for the exposure. The exposure is increased by a percentage. Similarly, the value of the collateral is reduced by a percentage before doing the asset netting. Let us understand this with an example. Suppose there is a corporate loan having an outstanding of rupees 100 crore. And this account is rated as AA. And the HE prescribed is say 4%. So what we do is, we will take the exposure after haircut, that is equal to 100 into 1 plus 4 by 100, which will become 104 crores. Suppose there is a collateral available and the value of the collateral is say 10 crores and the HC prescribed is say 6%. So the value of the collateral after haircut will be 10 into 1 minus 6%. That works out to say 9.4 crore. So what we have done is, we have increased the exposure by a percentage, that is the 4%, which is the HE. So it becomes the 100 crore exposure has become 104 crores. Similarly, I have a collateral value to 10% and the prescribed HC is 6%. I am reducing the value of the collateral. That comes to 9.4 crore. Now I do the asset netting. Asset netting means from the balance outstanding, I am deducting the value of the collateral. So that will come to 94.6 crore. Now, this is given to whom? A AA rated company. So, my netted asset after doing the haircut is 94.60, and it is a AA rated, means the risk weight is 30% and the required capital adequacy is 9%. So what I get is 2.55 crore is the capital fund the bank should have. So I repeat, haircut is nothing but increasing the exposure by a percentage and reducing the value of the collateral by a percentage, do the asset netting, then apply the risk weight depending upon the whether it is a retail loan 75%, whether it is a double A, it is 30%, whether it is a triple A 20%, whether it is a single A 50%. I do apply the applicable risk weight, then multiply it by the 9%, which is the capital adequacy requirement. Now, the third one is the capital for unutilized limit. That is the third one, capital fund for unutilized limits. As I have told you earlier, to determine the capital fund requirement, the balance outstanding as on the date of balance sheet is taken. Suppose we have a cash credit account. In the cash credit account, it could be possible that the sanction limit is, I am giving an example, say 5,200 lakhs. On the balance sheet date, the balance outstanding is say 4,700 lakhs. That means I have given you a sanction for 52 crores, but on the date of balance sheet, when I calculate the capital fund requirement, the balance outstanding was only 47 crores. The Basel II standardized approach says not only for the utilized limit you have to provide for capital fund, you have to provide for the undrawn portion which is likely to be used in the next month or the next day. Suppose I am drawing a balance sheet on some 31st of March, it could be possible on 1st of March, this may change, this can increase. So, for the unutilized limit, the capital fund need to be provided. I will give you the prescription given by the RBI on this. For the any exposure which has got a maturity period of 1 year, like cash credit, they have prescribed a CCF, credit conversion factor of 20%. That is for the unutilized portion. You need not say, for example, in the example, 5,200, then 4,700, the unutilized limit is 5 crore. For the 5 crore, you need not straight away give the capital fund. You can multiply the unutilized limit by a factor called the credit conversion factor and then apply the risk weight. Similarly, say for example, in case of a term loan, I might have sanctioned him 100 lakhs. He might have drawn only 60 lakhs. And out of the balance 40 lakhs, he may draw another 20 lakhs in the next year. And the balance 20 lakhs, he may draw after 1 year. Understand this very clearly. I have sanctioned him a project loan of 100 lakhs to somebody. He will draw the term loan based on the implementation of the project. He may not in one go withdraw the entire 100 lakhs. Assuming that he has already drawn 60 lakhs and the balance outstanding in the account is 60 lakhs. The balance 40 lakhs, he may give us a payment disbursement schedule where he says, I may draw the 20 lakhs in the next 1 year and the balance 20 lakhs after 1 year. So for this also, the RBI has prescribed the CCF. Now, term loan to be drawn in the next 1 year, the CCF prescribed is again 20%. Now, term loan to be drawn after 1 year. the CCF is 50%. That means whatever the money that has not been drawn from the bank and is likely to be drawn, straight away you need not apply the risk weight. You have to multiply that factor with what is called as a CCF, credit conversion factor, which is prescribed by the central bank. So what they have prescribed is, in case of a cash credit account or any exposure where the maturity period is 1 year, undrawn portion you multiply it by a CCF 20%. And in case of a term loan which is likely to be drawn in the next 1 year, again apply the CCF of 20% before risk weighting. And any term loan to be drawn after 1 year, apply the CCF of 50% before risk weighting. That is what is the capital for unutilized limit. I will give an example which will go by the earlier one. Suppose there is a cash credit facility. The sanction limit is say 5,200 lakhs. And the balance outstanding as on the day is say 4,700 lakhs. Then I know what is the unutilized portion is 500 lakhs. Now, suppose this account is a AAA rated account. Now, what I will do normally, I have to provide for capital fund for the utilized portion and for the unutilized portion. Now, utilized portion is 4,700 lakhs. Then multiply it by the applicable risk weight, that is 20% into 9%. I will get this as 84.60 lakhs. Now, for the undrawn portion, any cash credit facility is going to mature within a period of 1 year, because the validity period of a cash credit limit is 1 year, because it is supported by a document called demand promissory note, payable on demand. So first I have to apply the CCF, that is 20%. Why I am applying? Because it is an unutilized portion. CCF, again multiply it by the risk weight. Why? Because it is a AAA rated account. Again multiply it by 9%, the capital adequacy, which will come to 1.8 lakhs. So for the total sanctioned limit of 5,200 lakhs, wherein the balance outstanding was 4,700 lakhs, the total capital fund required is 84.60 plus 1.80, 86.40 lakhs is what is required to be provided as a capital fund. So we have understood three things. One is what is called asset netting. That is, the value of the basal collaterals are reduced from the exposure before doing the risk weighting and arriving at the capital fund. Second one is haircut, where the exposure is increased by a percentage and the value of the collateral is decreased by a percentage. Then you do the asset netting, look at to whom it is given, apply the applicable risk weight, multiply it by 9%. And the third one is capital for unutilized limit. That is, for the unutilized limit, whether it is a cash credit, whether it is a term loan, undrawn portion also, you have to provide for capital, but the capital to be provided is calculated after applying the credit conversion factor. In the case of any exposure which is maturing within a period of 1 year, it is 20%. Any term loan to be drawn within the next 1 year is again 20%. And any term loan undrawn which is to be drawn after 1 year is 50%. Apply the CCF, then do the risk weighting, then find out the capital fund. Now we have completed the Basel II standardized approach. Now let us understand the Basel II IRB approach. I have told you IRB means internal rating based approach. The name itself shows. Because in Basel II standardized approach for the corporate loan, we were depending on the ICAIs and IRAs to get the corporate loan rated. But in the IRB approach, the bank themselves will have to develop their own models to rate the customer. That is what is called IRB approach. Now, if you look at in Indian scenario, many of the banks are still to move to the IRB approach. The reason is, one, you have to develop a rating model, and the rating model has to be approved by the central bank before being implemented. Before doing that, they cannot move on to the IRB approach. So in the IRB approach, the name itself clearly says internal rating based approach, which means every bank should have their own rating model for rating corporates. Now in the IRB approach, we have two types approaches. One is called foundation IRB approach, and the next one is advanced IRB approach. There are two approaches. One is foundation IRB approach and another one is advanced IRB approach. The number of asset buckets in standardized approach was 13, and in IRB approach that is reduced to 5. The number of asset buckets, that is loans and advances, will have to be split into 5 in IRB approach. In the Basel 1 it was 4, it was increased to 13 in Basel 2 standardized approach, but in the Basel 2 IRB approach, the asset buckets have been reduced to 5. They are, one is sovereign, that is any exposure which we take on the government. Second one is the exposure on banks. Third one is corporate. Next one is retail. Next one is equity. Suppose the bank is participating in the equity of another company, then this will be applicable. So the number of asset buckets have been reduced to 5 in the Basel II IRB approach. They are sovereign, that is any exposure the bank is taking where there is a guarantee available either from the central government or state government. Second one, any exposure the bank is taking on other banks. The third one is any exposure on the corporates. Next one is any exposure on the retail or any exposure on the equity. And in this IRB approach, there are 3 risk components which are taken. They are known as PD, LGD, EAD. PD means the probability of default. When I say probability of default, based on the bank's own past experience, you have to decide what is the probability of default of this account in the given time horizon. Say usually within a period of 1 year. What is the probability? Will it 50% it is likely that it may default, or is it 80%, or the chances are very less that the 10% probability is there? That is what is called probability of default. The next one is given the loss, given the exposure, what is the probability of the loss? Say for example, LGD is calculated like this. Say for example, there is an account having an outstanding of 2 lakh. There is a security available whose value is 1,60,000. So the bank is likely to lose 40,000 rupees. This is what is called LGD. The probability that the bank is likely to choose, what is its percentage? Say it is 40,000 divided by 2 lakh into 100%. So the LGD here is 20%. Taking into account the exposure and available collateral security, assuming that I retire the collateral security and to that extent exposure comes down, what is the amount that the bank is likely to lose in case there is a default? That is what is called LGD. And the default, EAD is nothing but exposure at a default. Say for example, in this case, the exposure at default is 2 lakh, LGD is 20%, and the probability of default, the bank will have to work out. And it also take into account what is the remaining maturity period of the loan. Suppose I have given a term loan for 5 years, he has repaid 3 years, and the maturity period then will be 2 years. Similarly, any loan when it is given, what is the economic balance maturity period? That is indicated by a letter called M. These factors, the risk components which are there in the IRB, helps the bank in calculating the expected loss. See, in the Basel norms, there are 2 things. One is an expected loss, one is an unexpected loss. The expected loss, based on the past history, the bank themselves assumes what could be the probable loss. That is expected. When the expected loss are determined, that money is recovered by repricing the product. Suppose, say for example, I have 100 accounts. I know for sure that 10 will go FUT or 10 will become NPA. So what I do, whatever may be the loss that is going to happen on account of these 10 accounts will be loaded onto the 90 accounts and I recover it. So the expected loss is recovered. But whereas an unexpected loss, say for example, the Nirav Modi's case, and it was an unexpected loss. If the bank does not have the sufficient capital or the sufficient net worth to recover the unexpected loss, the bank will become insolvent. So the unexpected loss is to be met by capital only, whereas the expected loss is priced, repricing the product, I recover the expected loss. Now, how to calculate the expected loss? I'll give you an example. Suppose there is an account which is having a balance outstanding of say 600 lakhs. There is a collateral, say available is 300 lakhs, which is a Basel collateral. And the maturity period of the loan is say 1 year. And the probability of default, the bank has assumed that it is 10%. Now I have to calculate the LGD, because what is the loss likely? That is 300. 300 over 600, that means my LGD is 50%. So what I do is PD into LGD into EAD into M is what is called the expected loss of the bank. Here PD we know it is 10%. LGD I know it is 50%. What is the exposure? 600. What is the M? 1. How much the bank is going to lose? If the bank is going to lose 30 lakhs. That will be the expected loss from this account, and the 30 lakhs will be by repricing the product. The 30 lakhs will be recovered over a period of time. Naturally, the provision that is made on the NPA also helps in recovering the expected loss from the profit. So this is what is the three in the IRB approach is basically divided into two. One is the foundation IRB and another one is the advanced IRB. It is basically the rating models are to be prepared by the banks and which should get approved by the central bank. And now the three components are PD, LGD, EAD. Probability of default, loss given default. If the default occurs, what is the loss that is going to happen to the bank, and the exposure at default, and the maturity of the loan, say 1 year, 2 years, or the case may be. And now in the IRB approach, the number of asset buckets have been reduced to 5. They are sovereign, bank, corporate loan, retail loan, and equity. They are divided into the 5 buckets. Now, the probability of PD into LGD into EAD into M will give you the expected loss the bank can calculate and reprice the product in such a way that they can recover the anticipated or expected loss from there. Now, the basic difference between in the FIRB and AIRB are, in the case of PD, LGD, EAD and M. In the foundation IRB, PD is to be decided by the bank. How much is the loss given default? It is given by RBI. Exposure we know, and RBI has assumed 2.5 years as M for the FIRB. Whereas in the case when you move on to AIRB, probability of default is to be decided by the bank, LGD is to be decided by the bank, EAD is decided by the bank, everything has to be decided by the bank. With this, I have given an introduction to the Basel I, Basel II standardized approach and Basel II IRB approach. In the next video, we will move on to the Basel III norms. I hope you have understood this, and Please subscribe to this video if you like it. Press the like button. I will discuss the Basel III norms. What are the changes which happened in Basel III, which is now being implemented in all the Indian banks? The pandemic has delayed it, but even then, most of the banks have switched over to Basel III. Basel III talks more about the quality of the capital. See, the capital fund that the bank has got is the capital fund. And the capital fund, there are mostly divided into two. One is Tier 1 capital and Tier 2 capital. Some of the items are included in Tier 1, some of them are included in Tier 2. Say, for example, the bank's own money. The shareholders' fund is a Tier 1 capital. The reserves and surplus is a Tier 1 capital. But certain items like bank raises funds by issuing certain instruments in the market. They are, a portion comes into Tier 1, but a portion goes into Tier 2. What are the things that will come in Tier 1 and what are the items which go into Tier 2? We will discuss when we talk about the Basel III norms. I am explaining this in a very simple language because understanding it from any books or by the circulars of RBI, it's a bit difficult. That is why I am simplifying. I am telling you only the basic concepts underlying the Basel norms. So we will discuss in the Basel III how the Tier 2. Tier 2 means its loss absorbing capacity is less compared to that of a Tier 1 capital. Tier 1 capital has got a higher capacity to absorb the loss. So that is what it is. We will learn those things in the next video number 61. Thank you very much.